Good afternoon and welcome to the I Want to Be a Vet Professional Weekend, hosted by the Faculty of Veterinary Science at Onderstepoort. You would have noticed that in the platform that you got through the link, there's a chat function as well at the bottom. Please use the chat function if you want to ask any questions now for the sessions this afternoon. We've got people signed up from all across the country, as well as a few international students. So welcome to everybody from everywhere, from all the provinces. Maybe just to test the chat function, let's see where you come from. If you can type us your province in the chat function, and we can see the representation all across the country. That would be really nice. So welcome to the faculty with us this afternoon. The Faculty of Veterinary Science this year is 101 years old. The faculty was started in 1920 at Onderstepoort and has grown since then to be quite a formidable faculty of veterinary science in Africa and also with strong international recognition. We're very proud of this facility and the standards that we've managed to maintain here. I also want to, as part of the introduction, just thank all the sponsors. You will see that I'm wearing a very nice t-shirt that indicates the centenary of the faculty. We're 100 years old. And then Hills, you probably all know about Hills Pet Food. They are our main sponsor for this event. And then also the Junior Tikkie. So for those of you that don't know about Junior Tikkie, we strongly encourage that you become a part of the Junior Tikkie program. We really like our students to have gone through that program as part of your preparation for your studies here at Onderstepoort, especially looking at the selection system that we have. There's certain programs hosted by Junior Tikkie program that will help you with your selection process. So keep that in mind and become a member of the Junior Tikkie. In our program, which you have seen already this afternoon, we're going to have Dr. Kate May. She's the manager of our skills laboratory at Onderstepoort, and she's going to demonstrate some practical things to you that you can also try at home. So you might need a pet, or you can use a little brother or a little sister, or a big brother or a big sister if you don't have a little one, or your mum or somebody else, if you want to put a halter on their head, for instance, if you don't have an animal nearby. She's going to demonstrate these ropes, and we encourage you to try something at the same time so that we can have something interactive. You can ask questions in the chat, and we will try to follow your questions and answer you throughout the time. Before we get there, we're going to have an introductory video by the OPVSC. Now, the OPVSC is like the Student Representative Council or the SRC for our campus here. They are our student leadership. And this Want to Be a Vet Professional Weekend is an initiative by the OPVSC. They started this program several years ago, and we really strongly support this from the faculty side. So there will be firstly an introductory video, and that will then be followed by a video on cattle. Then we will have Dr. Kate May's session with the ropes, and then we will have videos following that of all the other species that we deal with on campus. So, over to the first video, introduction by the OPVSC.
Welcome to our annual I Want to Be a Veterinary Professional Weekend. This is the first year we are hosting this event online, and we're super excited to be sharing it with you. The project was initiated to provide and expose more school learners, especially those from underprivileged areas, with more information about the Faculty of Veterinary Science at the University of Pretoria. It aims to encourage more learners to consider a career in the veterinary field and hopefully to provide more veterinary services in rural communities.
During the course of this weekend, we will upload various pre-recorded videos and have interactive sessions. The videos and sessions will contain information we are taught here at Ondersport, as well as show you the facilities we have at our disposal. We will be focusing on 4 species: horses, cattle, sheep, and dogs. We will show you something interesting and different about each one. You may even try some of these things on your pets at home. The facilities we will be showing you are the hospital, the skills lab, the wildlife center, and the anatomy hall. The interactive sessions will include some knots we use in general practice and tell you why you need certain subjects to apply for our degrees.
Hope you enjoyed that introductory video by the OPVSC, and we see the live chat is already running. So welcome to everybody. It's nice to see where you all come from. I see we already have somebody from Swaziland signing in. So welcome to Holly from Swaziland, and also welcome to Grace from KZN. Welcome to Clarissa from Gauteng. Welcome to all of you. And we now go over to the next video, which is on cattle.
Hi, my name is Humaira, and I will be talking you through the basic behavior characteristics of cattle, as well as where we inject them. I will be explaining how to herd cattle and also the different injection sites we use in them. We need to take into account the different herding behavior characteristics of cattle. Firstly, we will discuss vision. Cattle's eyes are positioned on the side of their heads. Wide panoramic vision allows the animal to have a view of 330 degrees on the side and narrow binocular vision of 25 to 50 degrees in front of them. The area directly behind them is a blind spot. This means they cannot see us if we are directly behind them and should never be approaching cattle from behind. They can be startled and react by kicking. The fight or flight zone is the next item on the list we will need to consider. The flight zone is also called the animal's personal space. If we move inside the zone, the animal will move away, and when we back off, the animal will stop moving. The size of this zone depends on how tame or wild the animal is. It is more difficult to move very tame cattle because they have almost no flight zone. Next is points of balance. There are 2 points of balance. Looking from the side, it will be behind the shoulder. From the front, it is the center of the head. When we move close to a cow confined in a chute or against a fence, our position in relation to the cow's shoulder will affect the direction in which it will move. The imaginary line through the shoulder is the point of balance. If we go behind the line, the cow moves forward. And if we go in front of the line, the cow moves backwards. If we are moving towards the front of the cow, it will move backwards or turn away. From the front, we can deflect the cattle sideways by moving either side of an imaginary line drawn through the middle of the animal's length. With regards to the injection sites we use in cattle, always use a clean syringe and needle when performing any injection. We do intramuscular IM injections in the neck, gluteus, semimembranous, or semitendinosus muscle. The neck muscle is the preferred site, and it is important not to inject between the semimembranosus and semitendinosus muscles. We desensitize the area first by tapping hard with the side of the hand before injecting, and always aspirate to check that there is no blood before depositing. Subcutaneous, subcut injection sites are mostly used as most vaccinations are administered this way. Subcutaneous injection sites are any area with loose skin, for example, the neck or behind the shoulder. We do not need to aspirate before injecting. Lastly, we do intravenous or IV injections. We use the jugular or neck vein for large volumes of medication or blood collection. The coccygeal vein, also known as the tail vein, is used for small samples of medication and diagnostic sampling. We aspirate before injecting to confirm that we are in the vein.
Hope you enjoyed that video of cattle, and maybe we can change the question now in the chat and tell us what your favorite animal is, and if you know the role that veterinarians play in the different areas, for instance in horses, in cattle, in sheep, in all the different production animals, and obviously in pets as well. So with me now we have Dr. Kate May. She's the manager of our skills laboratory on the OP campus. She's got the best job here because she gets to play with all the models and toys that we have in the skills lab where the students practice their skills before they can practice the skills on animals. So there's an opportunity for them to practice skills on many different models in the skills lab, and then they go over to the live animals. So we're going to have a session by Dr. May now. And in the meantime, I also welcome here with us today Melinda from Mpumalanga, Piwo from Eswatini, another one from Eswatini, and Ryan from Gauteng. Welcome, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thanks, Dr. Kate.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to extend my welcome as well to you guys. And we're very lucky here to have the skills lab where students, as Prof. Holm said, can practice skills before they actually do any real life experience. So the plan for, the reason that we do that is that it's quite stressful for students to work on animals, especially if they're not used to working on animals. So what we allow you guys to do in the skills lab is to practice over and over again in a really safe environment, which allows you to sort of hone some of your skills before you actually get to live animals. So today I'm going to show you some rope tricks, I suppose, some knots. And you're probably asking, why do we need to know any knots? Because obviously we've got halters and things like that. Like surely we can handle animals pretty well. Well, the reason I want to show you some of these knots is that when you do specifically your community service year after you finish it at university, you often don't have all the luxuries that you might have had working at Onderstepoort. So I want to show you how you can really easily turn just a normal rope into a halter, how you can use it to restrain an animal, how you can use it to do a tail tie, how you can lift legs. And we also use ropes to cast animals. And I mean by that is to make them lie down if you need to. Obviously, we do have certain drug combinations that we can use for that as well, but sometimes you may not have that at hand. So I just want to show you how we can do that. So this is supposed to be an interactive session, so please pop your questions in the chat as we're going, and please ask any questions you like, and please practice some of these knots at home. Okay, so I'm sure we've got a few scouts out there, but if you're not a scout, that's fine. We're going to definitely show you how to make some knots. So if you don't have a rope at hand, you can use a shoelace or, I don't know, a dressing gown cord. You can use anything you like. All right, so the first knot that I'm going to show you is called a quick release knot. And it's really important that we have a quick release knot, because if we ever tie up an animal, and obviously this is not a live animal, but if we tie up a horse or a dog or anything like that, and they panic and start struggling, they are going to tighten the knot that you've tied. And it's incredibly difficult to untie a knot that's not a quick release knot if the animal's panicking and has pulled the knot really tight. And animals can, almost choke themselves if we don't use the correct knot. So I'm sure there's quite a few horse riders out there with us today. So whenever you're tying up your horse or your pony, it's really important that you use a quick release knot. Okay, and I'm going to show you a really nice, easy way to do that. So let's get our ropes in our hands. And if you can find an upright, that'll be really quite useful. Okay, and I'm right-handed, so I'm going to have the short end in my hand. But if you're left-handed, just do it the other way around. Okay, so the short end must be in your dominant hand. And what we're going to do is just cross the rope over the long end. Okay, like so. And then you're literally just going to make a loop with the short end of the rope. Okay. Then you're going to tuck the short end underneath the long end and just pull it through the loop that you've now made. Okay. We need to have a little tail at the end because that's your quick release. But we need to have it a bit tight. So if your knot's a bit loose, you just need to pull the other side. And then this is what we call a quick release knot. So just imagine this is attached to our horse. And if we want to release our horse, we very quickly just pull that knot and it loosens and we can release that. Okay. So I'm going to just do it again for you guys so you can practice at home. So short end in your dominant hand. Cross that over the long end and just make a little loop. Okay. And then you're going to get your little tail and pull it through the loop that you've just made. Okay, and then pull the long end, and that makes a really nice quick release knot like so. Okay. And we don't only use the quick release knot when we're tying up animals, although that's really important. We can also use it when we need to lift legs in cattle. So, cattle are not the easiest in terms of lifting legs. You know, if you ride a horse, horses learn how to pick up their feet on their own, so we can clean out their hooves. But cattle is a slightly different story. So I've got Big Bertha over here who's going to help us demonstrate this, and we're going to use exactly the same knot. Okay, so just need to think a little bit about cattle to start with. All right, so cattle are prey species, okay, regardless of their size, they're still a prey species, and they don't like you around their head. Okay, so they're very head shy. And they can headbutt you, which is obviously quite an occupational hazard, and they can also kick. But unlike horses that can kick sideways, cows, unless they're Brahman cows, because I've had quite a lot of experience, and Prof. Holland will probably back me up on this, Brahman cows can kick anyway, all right? But generally the way that the hips are designed in cattle, they can only kick backwards. So you are relatively safe, okay, not completely safe, but relatively safe around the back end of cows, okay? So cows can kick sideways, and we want to be, so if you're right behind the cow, you are very safe. But the kind of safest space if you are with cows is to be by their shoulders. All right. So when we want to lift the leg of cattle, we're going to pass the rope around the front leg. Okay, and obviously our cows are hopefully going to be in a crush or something that's going to be restraining their head so that they can't turn around and headbutt us. And then we're going to use exactly the same knot that you just learnt. Okay, so short end in your dominant hand. You're going to cross that over the long end and just do a little loop and pull the short end through like so. Okay, then we're going to pull the long end, and we want the knot to drop down all the way to the fetlock of the animal. And the fetlock, you guys will learn all this in anatomy, but the fetlock is the lower end down here. And then we would pull on the rope, and that would get the cow to lift her leg up. Okay, and then we can obviously tie the rope up so that we can then examine the claw. Okay, so cows don't have hooves, they have claws, and cows can also get laminitis, just like horses can, especially we find that in our high-producing dairy cows that are on very high concentrate rations. And the nice thing about this quick release is that the tail end, or the quick release, is always on the outside, so we can always just very easily undo our knot. Okay, whereas if we do a slip knot, it might be on the other side, which makes it a little bit more dangerous for us to reach underneath the cow to get that tail. Okay. You got any questions so far? Any questions in the chat? No new questions. Okay.
Any comments on favorite animals?
Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you, which also ties in with what I've been showing you with a quick release, is called a tail tie. So, where might we use a tail tie? Well, if we're ever doing a calving or some sort of obstetric examination in horses, for instance, we want to keep the tail out of the way, okay, for cleanliness and just because it gets quite annoying if you're trying to do something and this tail keeps swiping around your head. So I'm going to show you on our tail over here, and this is using pretty much the same knot as I've been showing you. Okay, so can we see me here? We're going to put and I don't suppose too many of you have tails at home, but maybe you can practice carefully on your own horses. So if we cross the rope over the tail like so, and we fold the whole tail up, okay, and then hold the tail in our hand, and we're going to have the rope around our finger like so, pull it around the tail, and then just tuck it into the loop that we've made. and then we're going to pull the long end. Okay. And then we can obviously attach the tail to a crush or the pen or whatever we're going to be doing. And the nice thing about this tail tie is that it's a quick release. So if the animal starts panicking, we can definitely be able to release their tail. So I'm going to do that again for you guys. So we put the short end across the tail like so. We fold up the tail. Okay. We stick our finger out and go around our fingers, around the tail, and then back through the little loop that you've made, just like you did for the quick release. Okay. And then we're going to pull the long end like so, and then we can keep that out the way. If we tie up the tail, obviously we also want to use the quick release knot so that if the horse panics, we can undo the knot. But the nice thing about the tail tie is that if you pull that, it all releases really quickly. Okay. We can also do this on cattle as well. So the reason our tail is so pink is that we practice, the students can practice taking blood from this particular cow in our skills lab. So sometimes it leaks a little bit. So that's why we have this really quite lumo pink tail here. So again, horses and cows' tails are different, and you'll see that in a lot of different animals. Horses have the bone sort of about halfway through the tail. Okay, the vertebra goes all the way to about halfway down the tail, whereas in cattle it goes much further down. Okay, so again we're going to have our little rope across the tail. We fold the hair up. Okay, stick our little fingers out, go around our fingers, and then tuck it into the short end there, and then pull the long end. Okay, and then we can tie the tail out the way. Sometimes you can tie the tail to the actual cow or the horse. Okay, and again, nice and easy, quick release. So if anything starts panicking, we can get that cow out of trouble. Okay.
So, Dr. Kate, thanks. We have a question here. On which positions should you stand when you tie the tail? Depending on whether it's a horse or a cow.
Yes. So if you're tying the cow's tail, it's a really, really great question. To be safe, you need to be behind the cow. And this is the nice thing about our model, is that, as I mentioned to you, and I think I got myself mixed up, but cows can only kick backwards. Cows can only kick sideways. This is what I got myself confused with earlier. Cows can only kick sideways. That's where the cow kick comes in, the sideways kick. So you're very safe standing behind a cow. Okay, and with horses, usually if we are tying tails or doing any kind of examination in a horse, they are in a crush. So they've got a special gate behind them or bars behind them so that they can't kick backwards. Because horses do kick backwards and they can double barrel you. So you've got to be very, very careful. There's lots of occupational hazards with dealing with animals. So you need to make sure the animals are restrained properly. So definitely not something to necessarily try at home unless you really know your animals very well. But yes, so cows, you're very safe to stand behind, generally. Unless it's a Brahman, then you've got to be quite careful. And horses, you need to be very careful anyway. Okay. Any other questions there?
We've got some nice comments here of people that have been head-butted by different animals, so that's interesting to see. Is there a way that we can tie the head to help us to prevent head-butting?
Yes, so I'm going to show you how to do a halter. Okay, so the knot that I'm going to show you is called the bowline. And the bowline is very useful because it's a non-slip knot. So I don't know if there are any climbers out there. Maybe we can ask in the group, any climbers that are out there in the chat. Climbers use this knot a lot, and sailors also. So if there are any sailors out there, Prof. Holm is a very good sailor, and I'm sure he knows how to do the bowline. But the bowline, as I said, is a non-slip knot. So this is a very useful knot, not only for halters, but if you fall down a mountain and have to be rescued, okay? And equally if, for instance, an animal falls down a manhole or something and you need to rescue it, and you need a non-slip knot that you can tie around the animal. Okay, so for this knot, just for ease, we're going to have the rope around our midriffs. Okay, again, the short end in your dominant hand. And I'm going to, for sort of ease of reference, I'm going to call this the rabbit. Okay, so the rabbit's in your dominant hand. Then you're going to just make a loop with your non-dominant hand, okay, the long end of the rope. Okay, and this is going to be the rabbit's hole, basically. So, and what you need to pay close attention to is which rope is on top, which part of the rope's on top. So the rope that's underneath is what's going to be the tree, and it'll all make sense in a second once I explain how to do this. Okay, so the rabbit comes out of his little hole, okay, round the tree, okay, and then back into the hole from the top. Okay, and then we want to pull it like so. So the bowline looks like that. Okay, it's a very specific knot. And the bowline's a non-slip knot. So if you need to be rescued, okay, this is not going to slip. So let me do that again. Okay, so for those of you doing it at home. So rabbit's in your dominant hand. You're going to make a loop with your non-dominant hand and look and see which piece of rope is at the bottom, and that's the tree in this example. Okay, I'm just going to give myself a bit more rope. Great. So rabbit comes out of his little rabbit hole, round the tree, and then back in from the top. Okay, and you can see this is the same piece of rope. Okay, so you're going to pull the tree and the two pieces of rope that are the rabbit, if that makes any sense. And that makes our bowline. Okay, so very useful, as I said, if you fall down a mountain or if you are in a manhole and you need to get out. This is the knot that the firemen are probably going to do with you. So how does this apply to animals? Well, if we want to make a temporary halter, we would use exactly the same knot. Okay, and this is a model we practice nasogastric tubing on. Okay, so that means that there's a tube that goes from the nose all the way to the stomach. Okay, and in horses, we do that if horses have colic, so if they have stomach ache, we might need to relieve the pressure that's in the stomach, or we might need to drench them with something, we might need to give them medication. So there's various indications for passing a nasogastric tube in horses. So this is our specific model that we use for that. Okay, so how does the bowline come in? Well, we put the rope over there, okay, behind the neck of the horse. And we're going to have the short end on this side with us. Okay. Short end behind. Okay. Then what we're going to do is, this is again our rabbit. Okay. We're going to just turn the rope up to make a little loop. Okay. Let's make sure I give myself enough rope here. Okay. Rabbit comes out the hole. Okay. Round the tree, and you'll see when you make this loop, okay, the rope that's underneath, which is the tree, falls on the top end of sort of towards the upper end of the horse, which is great. Okay, so rabbit comes out the hole, around the tree, and then back into his little hole there. And then we're going to pull the tree and the rabbit. All right, so this makes a very nice non-slip knot, because obviously we don't want it to be tightening around the animal's neck, because that's going to choke it ultimately. Okay, so we can move that all the way up to the ears, and then you're going to take your long end and just tuck it through your loop that you've made, and we're going to put that over the nose. Okay, and then what happens is every time we pull on the long end, it puts pressure on the nose of the animal, which is quite a sensitive thing, obviously you can imagine, and gives us more control, but we're not ever choking the animal around their necks. Okay, and then obviously you can use your non-slip, your quick release knot to tie the animal to an upright, for instance. Okay, any questions so far?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kate. We've got some nice questions coming in. One of the questions is not related to the ropes, just asking what species of animals we have at the faculty. So we do have horses. We've got a nice herd of nooit gedachte ponies that the students can also ride. So we also have a riding club on campus that students can participate in. And we've got cattle. We've got a herd of cattle. We've got sheep. We've got pigs. And we've got dogs. We've got beagles as well that we use for training. So those are to supplement what we do in the skills lab. Once you've experienced something in the skills lab, you get the opportunity to practice that on live animals as well on campus. So with regards to the knots, there's a question on the tail. Should the rope be under the tailbone?
You mean at the bottom of the tailbone?
Yes.
Yes. Let me just show you guys that. Definitely, yeah. We don't want to... we can do it on the cow, actually. So you actually need to find the bone, the last bone, the last vertebra, basically, before we, and then you would put that, so it must be below that, definitely. Otherwise, you want to try and break the tail, which you would do if you were trying to do it over the last bone of the tail. So yeah, great question. Thank you. Any other ones, Prof. Holm?
So more questions related to the animals on campus as well, asking us which breed of cattle we have on campus. The cattle that we have are tame cattle, so they're not of any particular breed at the moment, and it's very important and tricky for us to keep our cattle tame. because we use them for training, so they get a little bit annoyed if you do procedures on them all the time. So our cattle have been tamed by feeding them carrots. So you would never believe this, but cattle absolutely love carrots. And that's the way that we use to get them tame and friendly. And they are so tame now, and you would have seen in the video, in the cattle video, that we can get very close to them. Their flight distance is quite small compared to some farm cattle that we may be used to. Right.
Okay, I just want to show you how to do a halter on a cow. So it's very similar to the horse. Sorry, let me just bring my cow back into the picture. So again, we do the bowline. So, short end behind. There we go, behind the neck. We're going to just make our loop, okay? Going to pass the short end through the loop that we've made, round the tree, okay? And then back into the loop, like so, okay? And then with cattle, it's very similar to with horses, but instead of just using a loop like that, okay, we need to have an extra twist in the rope, okay? Because cattle, and this you'll learn in anatomy, have very different cheek structures to horses. So you can see horses have a really big, obvious cheek bone that they have, and cows don't have that. So if we don't do that extra loop, what happens is when we pull the rope, it goes up into their eyes, okay, which is not what we want. So if we just do an extra loop there, when we pull it tight, it doesn't go up into their eyes. Okay, so as you can see, bowlines are really, really useful knot to learn. Okay. All right. So another thing, and this is actually, before I became manager of the skills lab, I actually specialized in reproduction. So I did all kinds of things on animal reproduction. And one of the big things that you do as a vet is do a lot of calvings. And it's very important that your cows are properly restrained before you do any kind of operation or anything on them or any kind of procedures. So what I'm going to show you now is a very useful knot to restrain an animal which doesn't get tighter if the animal struggles. Okay, because otherwise if it gets tight, it's almost impossible to undo. Okay, so what I need you to do is to have your rope in your hands, okay, so and with your arms crossed like this. So probably easier if I do it from this side, like that. And then what you need to do is just uncross your arms, all right? And what you'll do is you'll find that there's one loop in front and one loop behind. Okay, so obviously you can just do that like this and like this. Okay, so that's the effect that you want to do. But I find it's more impressive if you just kind of open your arms like that and it's like so. Then what you need to do is fold the two loops in front of each other. Okay, so if you fold them one way, they're just going to come undone, so don't do it that way. You want to fold them so that the loop is like that. Okay. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to demonstrate for you on a calf, all right? It's not really usual that we would do this on a calf. It's more common that if the cow was giving birth, we would, and she was lying down, okay? We would want to restrain her back legs so that we didn't get kicked when we were trying to do the dystocia or the obstetric exam. So you also learn a whole new language when you do veterinary, and dystocia basically means that she's having trouble giving birth. Okay. So we've got our two loops together, and they're going to go over both legs of the animal, okay? And then you're going to basically pull the two pieces of rope apart, okay, so that they tighten. And then we're going to pass the loop around like so, okay, once or twice. And then we can tie the loose end of the rope to an upright or to some sort of a tree, whatever's at hand, and that will prevent the cow from kicking us. Okay, and the really nice thing about this particular knot, and it's called the hog tie, is that it doesn't get tighter if the animal struggles. Okay, so that's a really nice knot to know. Okay, so the hog tie is really important. Okay. So that's quite a useful knot. Any other questions in the chat so far?
So we've got some nice questions still coming through, and we've got a number of people that said that they managed with the bowline tie, so fantastic. Well done. It's a difficult one to do, so good demonstration. And aren't you all surprised about the number of different uses of a single piece of rope? without anything, without any knot. We make our own knots, and we use it as such.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. So there's a question about the skills lab, asking how many different skills and which skills can we teach in the skills lab?
That is a great question, and we actually have, off the top of my head, I can't tell you the exact number, but we have about 90 different skills or so that we can do in the skills lab. So we've obviously got all our models. Maybe I can show on Bertha. Okay, so she's actually, I was talking to you guys about a dystocia or obstetrics, so when the cows are struggling to give birth, and we can actually put, thanks Dr. Holland, we can actually put the calf, which you just saw, into Big Bertha, and we can practice on this side of it. So this, when I was in practice, was the business end. Okay, we can practice putting ropes and chains and things on the calf in order to help the calf out. So that's one of the things that we can do on Bertha. As I mentioned, we obviously don't want Bertha to be in pain when we're doing any of these examinations or doing the whole pulling the calf out or anything. So we can practice giving an epidural, which is like a local anesthetic that will numb the whole hind area of the cow, but will keep her standing. We can do that here. We can practice taking blood, as I mentioned, which is why Bertha's tail is so pink. We can practice, there's lots of things. We can practice taking blood. We can practice doing intravenous catheters, which you need before you put up a drip. We've actually got models for lots of things. I'm trying to think what else we've got for bandaging.
Probably more than 100 different skills that we can practice in the skills lab.
I think the OPVSC did a...
Yes, there's a video coming tomorrow on the skills lab that will give you a little bit more information and will give you a little bit more of a feeling of a day in the life of a veterinary student or a veterinary nursing student. So you will get to see the kind of things that we do there. So I see Martin Gammon says that he's a scout, so it was easy for him to do the bowline. That helps, of course. And there's another question from Cecile coming in asking, can you use the halter on a goat? And which one would you then use? The cattle one or the horse one?
Yeah, you could definitely do that. Obviously, you just make it smaller. So I'd use the cattle one, so do the extra twist so it doesn't go up into their eye. That's a great question, yeah. Thank you. Cecilia, did you say?
Yes,
yeah.
that
Thanks,
was
Cecilia.
from Cecile.
Yeah.
Right, let the questions still come in and we'll try to answer them and follow along the way.
Yeah. Kind of one, let me put Bertha back together, sorry. Thanks. Thanks very much. Thanks. Okay, so another thing that we sometimes need to do is to cast cattle. So that means that we want them to lie down. It's not often that we want them to do this, but if we need to do an operation or if we don't have a very fancy crush that can turn the cow on its side, for instance, so maybe I should backtrack a bit. So a crush is like a special pen that we put the animals in to restrain them so that they don't hurt themselves and they also don't hurt us. And certain of the very fancy crushes can actually move, and then we can examine like the lower legs of the animals, but you might have to use the quick release, as I showed you, to lift up the legs. And another way that we can look at cows when they're lying down is to use ropes. And this is where we use the bowline again. Okay, I just want to get my extra long rope. Okay, so really important thing when we are trying to cast an animal is that we, again, don't want to choke it. So this is why we want to know how to do the bowline. And then we basically use pressure points on the spine. That when you apply pressure to cattle, and please don't do this in horses because horses will completely have a cadenza. So in cattle, there's certain pressure points that we use, and if you pull on those with the ropes, then the animals actually do go down. Okay, it does take a few strong men, and we've had many students being skied behind cows as they were trying to pull the cows down, but it is possible to cast a cow. So again, what we're going to do is the bowline. Okay, let me just, this enormous rope. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, so now I've done this the wrong way around. So I need the short end. There we go. Okay. Okay, so exactly as we were doing for the halter, we want to use make a bowline. So we're going to make our loop, get our rabbit out through the hole, around the tree, okay, and back in the hole like so. Okay, and then it's a very nice non-slip knot. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Okay, so that's going to go there. Then what we need to do, there's a pressure point here. Okay, so we're going to push the rope all the way around and very carefully, without getting kicked, thank you. We're going to put that through there. Can you pull through there for me, thanks. Okay. All right, so we're going to make sure there's one turn there, okay, just behind the shoulders of the animal. All right, and then we're going to do, thanks very much, do the other rope here.
As you can see, this is a two-person.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is not a one-man job. Okay, and obviously you've got to be very careful of udders and things like that. Make sure it's there. And then you have a few people basically behind pulling on the cow to make it lie down. And there's some amazing YouTube videos of people doing this. And actually, like even one woman was pulling a cow down. So I'm not suggesting you guys try this at home. Okay. But it is, if you do need to get your animal to lie down, it's possible to do. And then obviously you can use the hog tie to tie up its legs so that it doesn't get up again and it doesn't hurt you. So, yeah. So I think that's pretty much my repertoire, I'm afraid, of knots. But you can see that even just having a really, just a piece of rope, and we use ski ropes. I can maybe show you guys one more on the calf. We just use normal ski ropes for doing carvings and things like that. Like, you don't need fancy ropes, and they're very, very versatile, as you can see. Just one more knot that I can remember to show you guys, and this is when we are doing a carving, okay? And basically when we're doing a carving, we want to make sure that the little calf can come out without causing too much pressure, okay, on the calf. So what we want to do is that we want to have a loop, okay? And for any of you carvers, you guys at home on farms, it's actually better to use a ski rope that you can use there. So we'd have a loop, and we'd go above the fetlock, like so, okay? And then we do what's called a half hitch. Okay, so basically you hold your rope, put your hand on top, you turn your hand over, and then you shake the paw of the calf through that loop. Okay, and that forms a half hitch, which is above and below the fetlock. So that when we are pulling the calf out of the cow, we would have ropes on both back legs, or both front legs and the head in this case, and it spreads the pressure. Because if we just had it over if we just had one loop, it puts a lot of pressure on the calf's leg, and you can break the leg. So that's why we do the half hitch, so that we can spread that pressure. Okay, what other questions have we got so far?
We've still got nice questions coming in. A question asked about what to do when an animal panics in a crush, for instance. And maybe one of the most important traits of a veterinarian or a veterinary nurse is that you have to be able to stay calm in a very stressful situation. Because you often find yourself in a situation where people around you are panicking with an animal's life that may be at risk, and you have to be the professional person and you have to stay calm. So if you start to panic with the animal, it usually ends up pear-shaped. And often with a big animal, like a farm animal, it's not a good idea when the animal starts freaking out to get in there, because it makes the situation worse. So often you have to get yourself out of the animal's flight zone, out of their safe space, and just give the animal a little bit of time to calm down. Cattle sometimes tend to get themselves stuck in a crush with a foot that got outside the wrong way, and they do panic because they can get injured, for instance. And if you are getting yourself in there, there's a risk for yourself to be injured as well, and to make it even worse for the animal. So the most important thing to do is to stay calm and not to also get excited.
I think that's great advice, and especially, often you are the responsible person as the veterinarian in any situation, because you've got to look after the animal's health and be aware of all the people that are around and make sure people don't get hurt as well. So definitely getting out of the animal's flight zone is really important. Certain crushes actually work on a squeeze principle, so they actually put a lot of pressure. You can actually squeeze, like hug the animal. I don't know if any of you guys have read about Temple Grandin. She's done a lot of work in terms of animal handling and specifically cattle. And she designed this squeeze crush that actually squeezes the animal, gives them like a big hug, and it actually calms them down. It's quite an amazing thing. She also worked out that cattle move in circles, so it's no point trying to chase them in straight lines because they follow circles. So there's a lot of, veterinary is just so diverse, and there's so many different aspects that you guys need to think about. It's such a wonderful career from that side of things.
It's a great one to go and Google, Temple Grandin, and see the very interesting videos produced and the different techniques used to try and work with animals using their own behavior as your basis, rather than to use our human behavior as your basis. We think in a slightly different way.
You have to think like a cow, which is how she put it in a lot of her stuff. She actually redesigned all the abattoir facilities in America.
That's right.
Because of how she completely revolutionized how we handle cattle. So she's really great. If you guys are interested in production animals, she's a great person to look up.
We have a little bit of time left, so let's chat quickly about the different roles of veterinarians and veterinary nurses and what's the difference. So these are two great professions that work together in a practice setup or in a professional environment, and they supplement each other, but they're different. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the difference between a veterinarian and a veterinary nurse.
All I can say is that veterinary nurses are essential to veterinarians, because without veterinary nurses we'd be lost, completely lost. So veterinary nurses do a lot of the, I want to say the background stuff that is not seen, but is absolutely essential to the smooth running of a veterinary practice and the successful handling of animals. So vet nurses are the ones that will keep everything organized, will in terms of theatre practice, they're the ones who also come and will help you with your instruments, will make sure that the theatre's all sorted out for the veterinarian. They really are such a complementary profession that runs with veterinarians. And
it's important as well that both these professions have a passion for animals as a starting point. But in the end, in a practice situation, you often find that the veterinary nurse works more with the animals than the veterinarian, because they do all the daily routines on the patients that are inside the hospital that need regular treatments. That's often done by the nurses. And they do all the nursing care of the sick patients in hospital, which takes a little bit more time. So they actually have more contact with the animals than the veterinarians, and the veterinarians would have more contact with the people. And in a farm setup, the veterinarian is a little bit more involved in the production side and also the economics of the farm than with the animals only. And the nurse plays a bigger role with the animals per se. So it depends what your interest is and what you really want to do, but these are two great professions to pursue. There are also other professions that are related. So we have animal health technicians. We don't train them here at Onderstepoort, but they also play an important role, especially in the state veterinary sector, where they are the extensions of the veterinarian, of the state veterinarian. They go to farms, they do routine testing on the farms for disease surveillance and so on, and they play a very important role as well. And then we have veterinary technologists as well, and they are the people that work in the laboratories that do all the diagnostic testing for veterinary practices or for the state.
And just in terms of sort of all the different careers you can have as a veterinarian, so obviously there's a small animal side of things, which I think most of you guys are probably aware of, and then also the production animals. We also have equine vets that have an interest in that. And at Onderstepoort, we teach you everything. So when you come out of OP, you might have an interest in something, but you will be competent in everything. So that's how, and then when you're in practice, you would concentrate more on like equines or production animals or sheep or something like that. So that's how it kind of spreads out. But veterinarians are also crucial in terms of our meat safety, which is not something I think a lot of people are necessarily aware of. So there's a vet who check that your chicken is good, it's good for you to eat. So that's just something to think about. There's also our feedlot vets and our intensive vets, which do specifically big feedlots, cattle feedlots, sheep feedlots. Pigs is also what we call an intensive animal production. So we have specialist pig veterinarians. We have specialist poultry veterinarians who just have like thousands and thousands of chickens that they are responsible for. And we also have our state veterinarians that are responsible for keeping our country safe, basically, in terms of all the animal diseases that are out there. So even within veterinary, there's a whole lot of different sort of career choices. I don't know if I've forgotten any. I'm sure
no, I think you've...
It's where we are now.
Yes. Yeah. Research.
And research, yes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks Dr. Kate for a fantastic session. I think everybody enjoyed it. I hope everybody learned something, even if it's just how to tie a new kind of knot. But that's a fantastic basic skill to have. Veterinarians and veterinary nurses need a lot of hand skills. We use our hands all the time in practice for many different things. So it's good to practice skills with your hands, even in preparation to coming to Onderstepoort to become a student here.
And we hope to see you soon.
So we now go over to the next video, which will be on sheep. Enjoy it and maybe give us some posts about who of you have never touched a sheep and would like to do so.
Hi, I am Lishan Pillay, and I'm going to take you through the sheep video on the basic clinical examination and anemia. In this video, we will explain how to safely catch a sheep to do a clinical examination and also estimating anemia. Firstly, we will show you how sheep are caught and handled. We catch the hind leg above the hock and gently pull the sheep out of the flock. We then transfer our hand to underneath the jaw. If the sheep is tame and does not run away, we place our hand underneath the jaw and reverse the sheep out. We need to ensure that we do not hold the throat, as this can obstruct the airway. We hold the sheep against our bodies. To move the sheep forward, we put pressure on the tail. We hold the chin upwards to stop the sheep and reverse it by holding the chin up higher. We can use our bodies to guide the sheep in the desired direction. It is important that we do not pull on the wool or catch the sheep below the hock. Next, we will show you how we set up and examine a sheep. We restrain the head of the animal with one hand by holding it underneath the jaw, with the thumb over the nose and the other hand holding the flank fold. Then we turn the head towards the flank, lift the flank and twist to set up the sheep. We cradle the sheep in a set-up position against our legs. We can now examine the nose, mouth, both eyes, both ears, as well as 8 claws. We also examine the belly for wool cover and then the udder if it is a ewe. To estimate the degree of anemia, we restrain the head by holding it underneath the jaw. We examine both eyes and look at the mucous membranes. We hold the Famacha scoring card close to the mucous membranes and note the color and level on the card that corresponds with the sheep's mucous membranes. The Famacha score ranges from 1, which are red mucous membranes, to level 5, which are very pale mucous membranes. We administer antiepileptics to all animals that score under level 3. As you can see, this sheep will be a level 2, thus no dosing is required. The Famacha chart was designed by Dr. Fafa Milan, who is a South African production vet. We commonly perform Famacha during the Haemonchus catortis period when we have a high worm burden. It is important that we look at both eyes when we want to estimate the degree of anemia.
That's by default. I mean, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Yes.
Wow!
So I hope you enjoyed the sheep video, and we got some nice questions in still about the ropes, Dr. Kate. So we have one question asking, can you break a calf's neck if you try to pull it out of a cow?
I don't think you'd be able to break its neck, but you would easily be able to suffocate it if you pull too hard. So you've got to be careful of that. And you can break its legs. So that's something you'll be quite careful of. Sometimes people use quad bikes or tractors to try and pull out calves that are stuck, and that's really not a good thing to do and can actually result in paralysis of the cow. So the cow can become paralyzed and the calf can die. So it's really important that you kind of know what you're doing in terms of the ropes. So if we can show you here, this is sometimes the calves do come, their necks we have what's called a neck flexion, and what happens is on this end, what we can actually feel is we only get the two legs coming out, and then what we would do is do an examination and determine that the head has been flexed, and we would actually have to get the head into the right position before we try to pull out the calf. Or we might have to do a cesarean, which is definitely something that you can do in cows. It's quite involved, but it's definitely a procedure that we can do, yeah.
So how do you get the neck correct now? Because cows don't have a nice lid like this that you can open.
They don't have a sunroof that we can just open, yeah. So what we would have to do is you'd have to what we call retropulse the calf. So you'd have to use a lot of lube, okay? And we always say you can never have too much lube when you are doing calvings. You'd have to push the calf all the way backwards, okay? And we'd wear obviously long gloves in this case, but you would have to go in and actually find the calf's head somewhere. So you'd have to work out which way it had gone to, okay? And actually ultimately get the calf's neck around. So I would have to push it actually further back because you have very limited space when you're working with a calving because of the pelvis. So we would have to get the calf's and it's quite physical, so it's important that you are relatively fit when you're busy doing calving. It's not for the faint-hearted. And then when the calf is in the correct position, I always call it the diving position because it's like two little legs and then the head on top, then you can try and pull the calf out. So there was a question about ropes and chains. So this is the ski rope that I was talking to you guys about, and again, it's just a normal ski rope. This is what we actually prefer to use for calvings. And probably one of the neatest tricks that I ever learned when I was at vet school was how to make a normal rope into a calving rope. So you just loosen up the rope a little bit, then you just use a pen to go down the middle. Okay, like so. Oopsie. And then you push the rope basically down the center of the rope. Okay, and that basically forms a Chinese finger trap. Okay, and even if you pull really hard, it's going to stay. So then what you can do is just make a loop with this, like so, okay? And then what's really nice is that there's no knots or anything inside the cow. So then we can put this, let me just pull out the little legs a bit more. Okay, so we could obviously have done a tail tie and got our tail out the way, so you can see how useful all these different things are. I don't know if it's going to stay there, can I ask you the whole thing's propped. Okay, and then we can have the rope above the fetlock, like so. And then what we're going to do is a half hitch, okay, and have our rope below the fetlock, like so. And then we use special rope handles. And again, we use exactly the same half hitch to make a non-slip knot that we can tie. Okay, and then you can attach the other rope and a rope to the head, and then you can attempt to pull out the calf.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kate, for a wonderful demonstration. And as you can see, these models are real life size. So this calf is a life size.
And live weight.
And live weight as well. It's quite heavy. It weighs just over 30 kilograms. And the cow is a normal size cow as well. And you can see in this model how difficult it is. And that's why it takes quite a bit of skill and training to do this job. Right, so thank you for that and for the wonderful session this afternoon. And we now go over to the next video, which will be on horses.
Hi, I'm Nadine Steeler and I will be taking you through some basic equine practical handling.
When we approach a horse, we do it in a confident, safe manner while informing the animal of our presence. We need to pay special attention to the body language of a horse. For example, if the ears are flattened and pinned back, it indicates possible aggressive behavior. Ears that are facing forward indicate friendliness or an interest in what's going on. When the horse is swishing its tail, it can be a sign of irritation or even an anti-insect response, while tail raising can mean intention to move or arousal. Horses are usually trained to be approached and handled from the left-hand side. When we handle a halter and lead, it should be kept neatly and held correctly to ensure quick application. We should put on the halter in a fast, safe, and smooth manner. Afterwards, we ensure it fits correctly by applying the 2-finger and fist rule, which is 2 fingers above the muzzle, 2 from the facial crest, and a fist below the jaw. When we lead a horse, we do it from the left-hand side. We stand at the horse's shoulder or neck, looking forward. Both our hands on the lead rope without wrapping it around our fingers or hands, and we gather the excess rope. Next, we will explain how to lift a horse's leg and clean its hooves. We start at the front leg, keeping contact with the horse and slide our hand from the shoulder down to the foot. To make sure the horse picks up its foot, we gently apply pressure on the flexor tendons or sesamoids.
It stabilizes you, so if the horse walks or tries to move, then you move with it. You've got good contact there with the shoulder.
So you can control
it makes the horse feel more comfortable as well, and they can rest on you a little bit as well. And if you do this, it's not on your back, otherwise you get back injuries, so it's more on your knee. You put the weight on your knee.
Once the horse has picked up its foot, we grasp the pastern or hoof wall and clean it out with a hoof pick. Remember to always use the hoof pick to clean away from you, as you can injure the frog of the hoof. When we are done, we carefully lower the foot to the ground. The hind leg is slightly different.
It's very important to start with the front, so the horse must know you here, and what I do is touch the horse with my body as well, not only my hands. And then go to the back and I get my knee there already, and then step backwards. So now she's immobilized, so just pass me the hoof pick. I can't pull one. And then when you clean, you always clean in that direction, away from it. Otherwise the hoof pick gets stuck in the frog there. So this way you can clean it out without moving. And then when you let go, you must always put it down, don't drop it. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video on the horses. And I'm now introducing you to Leonie Botha, and she has arranged all of this Wanna Be a Vet. She's one of our OPVSC members responsible for the Wanna Be a Vet Professional Weekend. She did a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Leonie. I'm sure you also enjoy it. And say hi to Leonie in the chat. And she's now going to tell us a little bit about the prizes that are up for grabs over this weekend.
Thank you, Prof. So we have a few prizes this weekend, over the course of the weekend. So we have 5 200 vouchers that will be allocated to the people that participated the most during the chat box and also the photos that was submitted. And then we also have some extra prizes from Junior Tukkie that also sponsored the vouchers prizes. And then we also have some prizes that comes from us. And yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. So there's some nice things to look out for. So stay active in the chat there. because there are some nice things up for grabs. You never know. You might be one of the lucky ones. So we now go over to the dogs video, and you will see our beagles on campus.
Hi, my name is Liane Hubert and I'll be showing you the basic clinical exam of a dog and how to take the vital parameters.
In this video, we'll be showing you how a dog is handled in a clinic to perform a clinical examination and how to take vital signs. Firstly, we have to ensure the safety of everyone as well as the patient. We approach the patient calmly and confidently. Never leave the patient unattended on a table. We will now start the hands-on examination by looking at the vital parameters. This is commonly referred to as recording the TPR. TPR stands for temperature, pulse, and respiration. The body temperature is measured rectally, and a normal temperature ranges from 37.5 to 39.5 degrees Celsius. Next up, we measure the pulse. We need to locate the femoral artery, which runs on the inside of the hind leg. After we locate the artery, we palpate it with our index and middle fingers for a minute. The normal range in adult dogs is 80 to 120 beats per minute. Heart rate is usually determined at the same time as the pulse rate. We place the stethoscope on the left side, between the 5th and 6th rib, and when we lift the leg, slightly behind the elbow. Here we can hear 3 of the dog's 4 heart valves, which are called pulmonary, aortic, and mitral, or PAM. The 4th heart valve, the tricuspid valve, can be heard on the right side. For every heartbeat heard, a pulse should be felt. We evaluate the dog's respiration in 2 steps. We observe the animal while it is breathing, and after that, we listen to the lungs with a stethoscope. The normal respiration rate is 15 to 30 breaths per minute. The hydration status is another parameter we look at while taking vital signs. To determine this, we pinch a skin fold between the thumb and index finger and lift it upwards. This is usually performed on the top of the neck area. If the patient is not dehydrated, the skin will go back to its normal position within 1 to 2 seconds. We can also observe the mucous membranes to determine the hydration status. We look at the mucous membranes of the mouth or the eye. The mucous membrane should be pink, moist, and glistening. While we lift the upper lip of the mouth to observe the gums, we can also determine the capillary refill time. The capillary refill time aids in determining the perfusion of mucous membranes. We measure it by pushing down on the upper gums for a few seconds until that area turns pale. We then release the pressure and observe the time it takes for the depressed area to regain normal mucous membrane color as blood flows back into the area. The normal capillary refill time is 1 to 2 seconds. After we recorded the vital signs, we can continue with the clinical examination of the entire patient. It is performed to examine the various body systems. We follow a systematic approach where we usually start at the head and work down towards the tail to ensure that we do not leave anything out.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video as well of the wonderful beagles. We really love our beagles and they play an important role not only for student training, but we also have a beagle interest group amongst our students, and students often go and visit the beagles when they feel a bit stressed out before an exam, and it's actually quite therapeutic to play with these dogs. So there was a question in the post here asking why particularly beagles? Why do we use beagles? Beagles are wonderful dogs. They're quite small, so they're easy to manage, but they're also easy to kennel, and they're easy to train and use for student training. They're very friendly, and beagles, for those of you that know them, they love attention. They absolutely love attention. So they don't mind when we use them to do physical examinations and so on, as you've seen in the video. In actual fact, they enjoy that kind of attention. So they are the perfect dogs for training for our purposes here. Right, and we have another question by Pumelu asking, do vets always work in pairs, or is it always a vet with a veterinary nurse, or two vets? No. In actual fact, very often, especially vets that work in a rural setting, will be working on his or her own, and would be going out to a farm on his or her own, maybe with an assistant or without an assistant. So often working on your own as well. Either that or in a practice, and there you can have a single veterinarian practice, maybe with a nurse, or just a single vet practice, or you can work in a very large practice, sometimes up to 20 veterinarians and 10 or 20 nurses working in one practice. So we encourage you also to visit your local veterinary practice or your state vet office and make contact with the people there and ask them if you may look around and spend some time with them to understand a little bit more what the profession is about before you start studies with us here at Onderstepoort. That brings us to the end of the day this afternoon. Leonie, I see in the chat there's a lot of thanks for you for this. It's a wonderful program so far. Thank you very much. And we will continue tomorrow. Please remember to post us some interesting questions still and chats, and you can maybe win a prize. And tomorrow we will start the program at 11 o'clock.
Yes.
And Leonie will be your host. Just to end off, we noticed a lot of questions about the program and about selection, and we have a specific session tomorrow afternoon starting at 1 o'clock where I will be answering those questions. In the meantime, you will see that there's a link to our faculty brochure. So tonight, please go and read through the faculty brochure because it will give you a lot of the answers that you've asked for already. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye.